Hi everyone, welcome to Chris's Daily Read Aloud, Magic Treehouse Edition. Today we're reading chapters 3 and 4 of Magic Treehouse book number 8, Midnight on the Moon by Mary Pope Osborn. If you haven't read chapters 1 and 2, go back to the video before to find chapters 1 and 2 to catch up with what Jack and Annie are doing on the moon. Chapter 3 is Open Sesame. Remember, Jack and Annie are currently staring out the window at the surface of the moon. "The fourth M thing must be out there," said Annie. Beside the door was a button with the word open on it. Annie reached for the button. "Wait!" Jack grabbed her hand. "There's no air on the moon, remember?" "Oh, right. But we have to go out to find the M thing." "Let's see what the book says," said Jack. He pulled the book out of his pack. He flipped through it until he found a page that showed the surface of the moon. He read aloud, "It takes 14 Earth days to equal 1 day on the moon. No air protects the moon from the sun's rays, so daytime heat reaches up to 260 degrees. Jack looked at Annie. "I told you our blood would boil if we went out there," he said. "Yuck," she said. Jack read from the book again. "Moon scientists wear spacesuits, which have controls to keep them from getting too hot or too cold. They have tanks which provide air for 2 hours. "Where do we get spacesuits?" asked Annie. She looked around, then trotted back down the hall. "Maybe there?" Jack was studying his map. "Let's try the spacesuit storeroom." "Don't look at the map," said Annie. "Look at the real room." Jack glanced up. Annie was peering through a doorway off the hall. "There's a ton of space stuff in here," she said. Jack went to look. Bulky white spacesuits hung from hangers. Air tanks, helmets, gloves, and boots sat in neat rows on shelves. "Wow, it's like the armor room in the castle," said Jack. "Yeah, with huge armor," said Annie. "Let's pick out the smallest stuff," said Jack. "The suits can go over our clothes." Annie found the smallest white suit, and Jack found the next smallest. They stepped into them. Then Annie locked Jack's air tank into place. "Thanks," he said, and he did the same for her. "Thanks," she said. "Gloves?" said Jack. He and Annie pulled on white gloves. "Boots?" said Annie. They each pulled on a pair of huge white boots. "Helmets?" said Jack. He reached for a helmet. "Wow, they're pretty light," he said. "I thought they'd be like knights' helmets." Jack and Annie put the helmets on. They locked each other's into place. "I can't move my head left or right," said Annie. "Me neither," said Jack. "Let's try walking." Jack and Annie moved clumsily around the room. Jack felt like a fat snowman. "Close your visor," said Annie. They both closed their see-through visors. The cool air filled Jack's helmet. "I can breathe," Annie yelled. Her voice boomed in Jack's ears. "Ow! Talk quietly," said Jack. "We must have two-way radios inside our helmets." "Sorry," whispered Annie. Jack put the moon book back in his pack. Then he slung the pack over his shoulder. "Okay," he said. "Remember, we only have 2 hours of air in our tanks. So we need to find the fourth M thing really fast." "I hope we can find it," said Annie. "Me too," said Jack. He knew they could not go home until they did. "Let's go," said Annie. She gave Jack a little push. "Watch it. No goofing off," he said. "We don't want to fall over in these suits." "Just go. Go," said Annie. She pushed him out of the room. They walked back to the airlock. "Ready?" said Annie. "Open sesame." She pressed the open button. A door slowly slid closed behind them. A door opened in front of them, and Jack and Annie stepped out onto the moon. Chapter 4, Moon Rabbits. "Oh, wow," said Annie. She took a step forward, but Jack stood frozen. He wanted to get a good look at everything first. He stared at the ground. He was standing in a layer of gray dust as fine as powder. Footprints were everywhere. Jack wondered who had made them. He reached into his pack for the moon book. To his surprise, it felt as light as a feather. He found a picture of the footprints on the moon. He read, "The moon has no rain or wind to blow the dust around, so footprints will never wear away naturally, not even in 1,000,000,000 years." "Oh man," Jack said. The moon was the stillest place he'd ever been. It was as still as a picture, and its stillness would never, ever end. Jack stared at the ink-black sky. A lovely blue and white ball glowed far away. Earth! For the first time it really hit Jack. They were in outer space. "Look," Annie cried, laughing. She bounded past Jack, almost flying through the air. She landed on her feet, then jumped again. "I'm a moon rabbit," she called. Jack laughed. How does she do that, he wondered. He turned a page and read, "A person weighs less on the moon because of the moon's low gravity and lack of air. If you weigh 60 pounds on Earth, you would only weigh 10 pounds on the moon." "Don't just stand there reading," said Annie, grabbing the book from Jack's gloved hand. She tossed it into space. It flew far away. Jack started after it. He bounded up and down. Boing, boing. boing, boing. Now he felt as light as a feather. Look, Annie, he called to Annie, I'm a moon rabbit too. Where Jack's boots hit the ground, moon dust gracefully sprayed into space. The book had landed at the edge of a shallow crater. When Jack reached it, he tried to stop, but his feet slipped. There's the book he's chasing. He fell right over and lay on his side. He tried to stand, but he was off balance. He tried again, but the dust was too deep. His spacesuit was too clumsy. You okay? Asked Annie. I can't get up, said Jack. You shouldn't have been goofing off, said Annie wisely. You goofed off first, said Jack. Now help me up, please. Don't fall too, Jack warned him. Jack warned her. I won't, said Annie. She moved very slowly. She half floated, half walked. Give me your hand, she said. Annie grabbed Jack's hand. She pressed her boot against his and pulled him up. Thanks, he said. No problem, she said. It was easy. You were really light. Thank goodness, said Jack. It's impossible to get up alone. He picked up the moon book. It was covered with dust. He brushed it off. Oh, wow, look, said Annie. She stood at the edge of the crater. What is it, said Jack. A moon buggy, said Annie. The buggy was parked in the crater. It had 4 huge wheels. Let's go for a ride, said Annie. We can't, said Jack. We just have 2 hours of air in our tanks, remember? I bet we'll find the M thing faster if we take the moon buggy. Annie bounded into the crater. But we can't drive, said Jack. I bet I can drive this, said Annie. It looks easy. Come on. She jumped into the driver's seat. But you don't have a license, said Jack. Who cares, said Annie. There aren't any roads on the moon, or stoplights, or policemen either. She was right, Jack thought. Well, go slow, he said, and he climbed on beside her. Annie pushed a button labeled on. The moon buggy lurched backward. Yikes, said Annie. Step on the brakes, said Jack. Annie pressed a pedal on the floor. The buggy stopped with a jerk. Whew, she said. It must be in reverse, said Jack. Let me study this. But before he could study anything, Annie pushed another button. The buggy tilted back. Its front wheels started to rise into the air. Let me out of here, said Jack. Annie pushed more buttons. The buggy's front wheels landed back on the ground, and the buggy leapt forward. Slower, said Jack. I can't, said Annie. I don't know how. Annie steered the buggy over the tracks on the ground. The wide wheels kept it from sinking into the deep dust. Careful, said Jack. The buggy zoomed out of the crater. Great clouds of dust rose behind them as they took off across the moon. Chapter 5 is Hang On. Join us again tomorrow to find out what happens to Jack and Annie out on the moon and if they crash in that moon buggy. Have a good day. Wash your hands. Stay safe. See you, everyone.